care. Look at this.
And Mark Henry now. Chyna taking it to Mark Henry. Oh, Mark Henry was bragging about.
Let's roll down to that tragic chapter in Chyna's life, the moment the wrestling world lost one of its most unforgettable stars. It was April 20th, 2016, when the news broke that Joanie Laurer, better known to the world as Chyna, had been found dead inside her home in Redondo Beach, California. She was only 46 years old. The discovery was made by her manager, Anthony Anzaldo, who had grown increasingly worried in the days leading up to it. Normally, Chyna was active on her social media, constantly posting updates, videos, or messages for her fans. But suddenly there was silence. Days went by with no word, no posts, no signs of life from the ninth wonder of the world. That's when Anzaldo decided something wasn't right. He went to check on her, and that's when he found her, lifeless, in her apartment. It was a heartbreaking scene that confirmed the fears of so many who had seen Chyna struggle in her later years. At first, police reports didn't provide a clear answer. They stated that she may have died from natural causes or perhaps from an accidental drug overdose. Anzaldo himself suggested that if drugs were involved, it wasn't intentional. Chyna had been prescribed medication, painkillers, anxiety pills, sleeping aids, and she had a history of using them improperly. It wasn't about chasing a high, but more about struggling to manage pain, stress, and the heavy weight she carried in her personal life. Sadly, that dangerous mix can sometimes lead to tragedy, even when it's not meant to. After her passing, something extraordinary was done in her honor. Chyna's brain was donated to science, with the hope that doctors could study it for signs of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, better known as CTE, a disease caused by repeated blows to the head, something many wrestlers and athletes have suffered from. The intention was to understand if years of punishment in the ring had left lasting effects on her mind. Unfortunately, by the time her brain was examined, it had decomposed too much for doctors to give a clear answer. They couldn't say for sure if she had CTE, but the very fact that this step was taken showed how much her life and her struggles could still contribute to helping others. When people talk about Chyna, they often start with her larger-than-life image in the wrestling ring, but her journey to superstardom wasn't easy. Before she was the ninth wonder of the world, Joanie Laurer was simply a woman chasing a dream in a world dominated by men. Her career began in Massachusetts, where she trained at the legendary wrestling school run by Wladek "Killer" Kowalski, a man known for producing some of wrestling's toughest stars. Training under Kowalski wasn't glamorous, it was grueling and intense, but Chyna stood out. She had a mix of size, strength, and determination that made her impossible to ignore. Her very first wrestling match took place in 1995, and it was unusual. She went up against a male wrestler who was dressed as a woman. From the very start, her path was unconventional, and that would become a theme throughout her career. In those early days, she wrestled under the name Joanie Lee, taking whatever bookings she could get on the independent scene. Some of those early matches were even set up by none other than the fabulous Moolah, a trailblazer in women's wrestling. Little by little, she was building her foundation, gaining experience, and preparing for something much bigger. That turning point came in 1996. After one small wrestling show, fate introduced her to two men who would change her life forever: Paul "Triple H" Levesque and Shawn Michaels. At the time, both were rising stars in the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF. They watched some of her matches and immediately saw potential in her unique presence. Chyna wasn't like anyone else they had seen. She had the power to intimidate, the size to match up against men, and the aura of someone who belonged on the big stage. Triple H and Michaels brought her name to the attention of WWF management, suggesting she could be the perfect bodyguard figure for them. But there was a problem. Vince McMahon, the head of WWF, wasn't convinced. He doubted whether fans would accept the idea of a woman beating up male wrestlers. To him, it seemed too unbelievable. While Vince hesitated, another opportunity opened. World Championship Wrestling caught wind of her and offered her a spot in their hottest faction at the time, the New World Order. They wanted her to be the only female member of the NWO. Chyna even accepted the offer at first. But just as that door opened, another one swung wider. Shane McMahon, Vince's son, told her the WWF was ready to bring her in. Kowalski also played his part, reminding WWF management that WCW was interested and pushing for her to be hired. In the end, the WWF move won out. And so, on February 16, 1997, Chyna made her iconic debut. It was at the pay-per-view, In Your House, 13 Final Four. Sitting quietly in the crowd, she suddenly sprang to action. From a planted ringside seat, she stormed the ring and grabbed Marlena, the valet of Goldust, choking her while Goldust was locked in battle with Triple H.
Security taking that lady away.
Her official place in the company was as the silent enforcer for the rebellious new faction called D-Generation X, led by Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Chyna's role was clear. She was the muscle, the one who would make sure DX came out on top, no matter the cost. If that meant interfering in matches, so be it. Her trademark move quickly became the devastating low blow, and she used it to help her allies win time and time again. She didn't talk much in those days, but she didn't need to. Her presence said it all. Interestingly, the name Chyna was given to her as a play on words. Fine Chyna is delicate and fragile, but Chyna was the complete opposite. She was tough, intimidating, and unbreakable. At first, many male wrestlers backstage were hesitant. Wrestling has always been built on the idea of believability, and some weren't comfortable with the image of a woman overpowering men. But soon, Chyna made it clear. She wasn't just any woman. She was unique, and fans were buying into it. Eventually, Chyna played along, becoming his on-screen girlfriend. But in January 1999, she revealed it was all a trick. She turned the tables on Henry, humiliating him instead. The angle not only gave her more screen time, but also showed her ability to mix intimidation with entertainment. But what truly cemented her place in history came at the 1999 Royal Rumble. For the first time ever, a woman entered the famous 30-man Battle Royal. Chyna entered at number 30, the final spot, and shocked the world by eliminating Mark Henry before being tossed out by Stone Cold Steve Austin. That moment broke barriers. Chyna was proving that she wasn't just part of the women's division, she was rewriting the rules by competing with men. The next night, her character took a shocking turn. She betrayed Triple H and aligned herself with Vince McMahon and Kane, forming new alliances. At the St. Valentine's Day Massacre event, she teamed up with Kane against her former friends X-Pac and Triple H. Then, at WrestleMania 15, she double-crossed Kane and appeared to rejoin DX, only for her and Triple H to betray them again later that same night, joining the corporation. The twists and turns of her allegiances kept fans guessing, but one thing was clear. Chyna was always at the center of big storylines. Later that year, she found herself in one of her most famous rivalries, with Jeff Jarrett. Their feud built to the pay-per-view No Mercy in October 1999, where Chyna defeated Jarrett in a good housekeeping match, winning the Intercontinental Championship. In doing so, she became the first, and still only, woman to ever hold that title. Behind the scenes, Jarrett demanded a hefty payout of $300,000 from Vince McMahon to agree to lose to a woman before leaving the company. Despite the politics, Chyna got her moment, and it cemented her as a trailblazer in wrestling history. By 2000, she was paired on screen with Eddie Guerrero in a storyline romance. Fans quickly fell in love with the unlikely couple, with Guerrero calling her his mamacita. But like many wrestling relationships, it ended in betrayal. Around the same time, Chyna posed for Playboy in the November 2000 issue, something that was woven into WWF's storyline. It sparked controversy, especially with the Right to Censor group. Behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Her real-life relationship with Triple H had ended, and he began dating Stephanie McMahon, the boss's daughter. After leaving WWF, Chyna tried to reinvent herself. Nearly a decade later, in 2011, she made a surprising return to the spotlight in TNA. She competed in one final match at Sacrifice, where she forced Karen Jarrett to submit. It was short-lived, but it gave fans one last glimpse of the Chyna they remembered. And that wraps up today's video. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.